Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome to episode 7 of the second season of The Rings of Powers. We are almost done now, with flashing another $1 billion down the drain, and at least they used some of the money today. There are improvements. They mocked the armor design in the first season so much they made new ones for the elves, and it looks kind of okay. Horse armor looks nice. Some of the personnel armor even looks okay. If only they'd gotten people of, uniform body size, as in soldierly, it would have looked really good. Instead, you've occasionally got the one dude in the background whose helmet is clearly too large.
It's like there was some semi-interesting moments in this episode, but in my opinion, it's still the second most boring episode in the entire series. And this was supposed to have a decent fight scene, but there was some fighting, there was a mandatory 15-minute break for both sides. We got a little bit of incest, because, they really wanted their Game of Thrones, and then it was back to fighting.
See, that's probably the biggest weakness, because I am a defender of the Battle of the Five Armies from the third Hobbit movie. Because in my opinion, the third Hobbit movie is just like a 3-hour-long battle scene. And I never thought I would see a battle scene I didn't like badly done. And yet this is it. Because it skips so much that it's difficult to understand what's going on. It's not so much a battle scene as it is a series of unattached skirmishes where you see a bunch of dudes fighting and then you see another bunch of dudes fighting, and there's no there's no overall strategic goal here. There's never any urgency. It never feels as if something is really going on. You just go from various groups fighting, and then you go to peace, where they're not fighting. It's like, okay, why did you stop?
I don't know. It's like I was expecting for when they did this whole fight scene, it would be one episode of continuous fighting. Just one large battle episode similar to Battle of the Bastards for length of battle. But every time I'm like, okay, battle scene, this is impossible to mess up. My expectations were a little too high. And Amazon once again disappoints me.
I think one of the big things, you mentioned Battle of the Bastards. And let's remind myself, I'm going to bring a picture of it. So, one of the things that they got very wrong in this episode, I think, is that they failed to convey the mass of the combat. In Battle of the Bastards, or in most of these big battle scenes, in the Lord of the Rings, etc., there's always throngs of men in the distance fighting. It always feels like there is a bigger battle going on somewhere just a little bit away. Because obviously you've only got so many extras, right? So you can only have so many dudes actually fighting. But you add in CGI or additional, movie role, etc., to make it look like there's a lot more people. Here, they never really did that. There's always just a dozen dudes on screen fighting, and this adds into the weird time-skippy nonsense to make the entire fight feel like it's not a battle. There's a scene where they're preparing to charge them with cavalry, and they stop because they're like, hey, we've got Galadriel. And instead of continuing the charge, overwhelming the enemy and saving Galadriel, they just stop. Then they argue for about 5 minutes, what are we gonna do now? It's like, well, we're gonna fight. Oh, but we're about to fight. Why did you stop us? Oh, I don't know, actually. Why did I stop you? I'm not gonna threaten to kill Galadriel if you fight us, so I guess we're just fighting now. Oh. Why did we do this whole hostage thing?
I mean, she somehow had to go off screen long enough to sneak into the city, I guess. And okay, with Celebrimbor, they have him confined to the tower because he tries telling them, oh, Anatar Sauron, and they're like, oh, well, Lord Anatar knew person in charge of the city is now gonna have us hold you in the tower. Finish those rings, goddamn you. They're about to take him again. And Galadriel just comes over and it's like, no, what are you doing? That guy's Sauron. And they're like, oh shit, well, we'll fight for you now.
They weren't that corrupted, I guess. And okay, so the Celebrimbor are stuck in this tower thing, and he notices that there's a weird time loop. So clearly Sauron has put a spell on him so he doesn't feel like the time is passing in the same way as normal so that he can finish the rings. Okay, that's kind of cool, but he feels like they forgot about that and just continued doing it for the entire scene. Like, the orcs are outside and they're bombarding the city, which they must have done for an entire day, since now it's bright outside again. Then they start charging the walls for a while, and they fight the elves for a little bit, and then it's dark. Like, it's difficult to determine how many days has passed, so it seems like it's just been like a day and a night in total. So Celebrimbor finished all 9 rings in a day and a night. Or maybe it's just the time is even fuckier, because Gil-galad arrives. Like, they're not next door. Like, that's a week-long journey. And they're expecting help from Durin and his folk. They're another couple of weeks away. A black elf arrives. He was on the other side of the goddamn globe at this point. He was closer to Mordor than Eregion. This is like the big problem with their ignorance of the scale of the world and the timing stuff, right? Because now, nothing feels like it has weight anymore. Characters and armies just teleport as and when needed. Like, Elrond shows up in Durin's Hall, and then, which was even, God, it bends the mind. So he must have gone all the way from Gil-galad to Durin's Hall, then back again to Eregion to join up with the army, all in less than a day.
And it's like with the time loop thing that Anatar had Celebrimbor in. It's like, okay, I get it. The scene around him is just forever looping the same, like, handful of hours through the day. But there's a war raging outside. When he snaps out of it, everything around him is destroyed, crumbled down, and you can see that there has been structural damage. Jesus Christ, English. It was done.
You picked up my tick.
Shut up. Anyways, you would think he would have been able to feel, what's that? That felt like something hit the tower. Oh no, it was nothing.
Bangs his shin against one of the broken rocks for the 3rd time, like, ow! What the hell?
And the fact that the forge was absolutely destroyed. How'd he make the rings if everything around him was destroyed?
Yeah, like, most of his gear is busted at this point too, but I guess he didn't notice. Was he just smithing it with the power of his mind, I guess? Like, again, the time loopy nonsense is like, it makes no sense. Like, all of there's no structure to this episode. There's this loose passage of time where stuff supposedly happens, and they're trying to tear down the walls with a reverse ram, apparently, of some stupid sort, instead of just they've constructed like half a dozen trebuchets, complex machinery, mind you, as well, but they don't use those to batter down the walls. They don't build a ram or attack the main gate. Now, they use this weird, dumbass reverse contraption to do it. And they keep doing this throughout the goddamn episode, and the elves are like, oh my god, we gotta stop them. They're like, hey, you, Chinese elf, make it blow up. And it's like, how? With arrows? Yeah. But it's literally impossible. Just do it. And she does it, of course, because fuck me. That's why.
I mean, I told you, as soon as they gave her a name and a face and a purpose, she was gonna die. 2 minutes later, she gets pelted with a bunch of arrows. She has just enough strength to stand up, grab an arrow, light it on fire, and blow up whatever the fuck she had to.
Yes,
So
because the orcs decided to keep their highly flammable store of tar on their war machine.
Without having a cover on it either.
Like, I love it. It's like, there's just a bucket of tar right there. What purpose does it serve? God alone knows. This is a bucket of tar. Oh, God. Again, it's so obvious they just wrote this as a script. That's the problem, right? And the elves charge, but then they're stopped because the orcs are like, we've got Galadriel. And they're like, oh my God. Well, we can't fight you now. And then they stop. Okay. And then they argue. Okay. Very well. You've got Galadriel. Are you gonna trade her to us? You can hold her hostage, ransom. What are you gonna do? And it's like, oh, you gotta give us your rings. Thinking like, no. All right. What now? Are you gonna kill Galadriel? No, of course not. I threatened you for no reason. Oh, so we're still fighting? Yes. Like, reality bends not to what's actually happening, but to whatever the script writers need. Oh, and the part where they dam the river. God help me.
Oh my God, you guys should have heard it. Arch was so disappointed. It was like the most legitimate disappointment I've ever heard, like, just come out of this man's mouth. Even more so when he tore down my stuff in Anno.
It's like they start they start flinging rocks at the mountain. Tiny little rocks fired from their little trebuchets. And this hits the mountain and causes an enormous avalanche because the mountain has been balanced so precariously. As if to facilitate this. It then falls and perfectly blocks the entirety of the river, which was presumably like 2 meters deep at most. Oh. And the most ridiculous part is that the orcs can't hit the city walls, right? They constantly miss. They're flinging various projectiles into the goddamn city itself. But this tiny fucking rock, like 2 kilometers away, up a mountain, they hit on the first try.
Oh, and the other fun part about the river, after the river is completely drained in a very short amount of time, the orcs are just walking across it just fine. It's like, okay, there's nothing there, guess whatever. And then as soon as the elves are going across, their horses start drowning, and it's like, huh? I get it, weight difference, but not that much.
The orcs are crossing it perfectly fine, no problems. And the elves come in, and the horses sink to their flanks. Like, oh, I see. Is this an excuse to not have cavalry?
No. This is even more fucking bullshit. Because they were pulling their shit across the river too. So it's like that would have been sucked right in. They wouldn't have been able to do shit with it.
Yeah, because they moved their dumbass reverse ram all the way over the river. It's a long battle scene that makes absolutely no sense. And you need a scene like this to make a degree of sense. Otherwise, it comes across as vapid and pointless, which is exactly what this does. It's 12 dudes fighting the same 12 dudes over and over again. And if you look close as well, because I'm pretty sure what they've done, there's a technology where you film like 12 dudes doing something, like running forward. And then you take another video of another 12 dudes doing the same things, running in the same direction, and you overlay both videos to make it look like there's like 24 dudes running. I think that's what they used here, because you see the same orc helmet repeated again and again and again and again. Which also makes me wonder, how the hell did the Lord of the Rings get that many extras and so many, like, the mass charge sequences on a budget less than this season's?
Because there is more love in the Peter Jackson films than there are with us.
I suppose that's true. Oh, reminds me of the love. Oh yes, when the orc turned to Odin and go, "Father, don't you love us anymore?" And he was like, "No." Go die now.
No, he said he loves them with what's left of his heart.
Because he won't allow them to be slaves of Sauron again, but how would they be slaves of Sauron again? I mean, I thought we'd already discounted this whole thing about them being enslaved via magic, because if that's the case, why would they rise up in the first place? And there's even a scene here where Sauron does use magic to defeat a bunch of elves who have come to arrest him. So yeah, Sauron, why didn't you do this when the orcs were stabbing you? Like, he's suddenly using magic, and don't get me wrong, I actually appreciate Sauron having some actual powers, but where were these powers when you were being stabbed by your own fucking orcs?
It's the power of convenience, Arch.
It really is.
I don't know. It's. Fucking what else was going? Oh yeah, when Galadriel was still in the orc camp and she escaped after her makeout session with fucking Elrond. You know,
yes.
Son-in-law and all that.
Elrond kissed his mother-in-law. Future, to be fair, but still, bit weird.
Still, but. She manages to lockpick herself out of her shackles. She puts on a robe around herself while her hair is still poking out of the hood and everything, walking around and just observes the funeral pyres of the orcs, sees Adar crying, and she's just like, oh no, the poor thing. Anyways, she leaves. It gets cornered by 3 orcs. Magic black elf arrows just appear out of nowhere. Arch is just like, oh yes, the black elf is around. Didn't even see him for another minute. There he is. He gets a clear shot to kill Adar. And Galadriel's like, no. You don't want to do that. There's too many elves that are dying today. And then he ends up dying at the end of the episode.
Yeah, too many elves are dying. I can't have you stop the battle by killing the enemy's commander. That would be silly. Don't do that. And he doesn't do that. God. And for what reason? Why wouldn't he just kill him? Oh, because. It's one long fucking terrible contrivance. And again, all of these contrivances are then compounded with the fact that the battle is just tiny. Like, the massive dwarf army is like a handful of blocks of dudes. Like, there's like 100 guys, maybe. The elves are 100 guys strong. The orcs are apparently just innumerable. There's even a period where they apparently stop fighting. They just go back and they're starting to cook food and shit for some reason. Until Adar is like, we're losing again. More of you, come up here. It has no weight, because it's like...
No.
It's almost like a video game battle, where you see your little pointless allies around you, and you don't expect them to do anything, because they're just there to look like extras, and the orcs continuously spawn off screen, so who cares?
It just seemed like a pointless episode. Just to get every character in one area, it just seemed like the Gathering episode. That's it. Except for Durin, because his father's gone crazy.
Hey, that's it. Like, okay, so the other dwarves join Durin and Disa, because suddenly all of the other dwarves have suddenly noticed that the king is going mad. Like, it's been days. It's been... Oh god, that's what I hate the most. It's been fucking days. This news can surely not have spread that widely, and yet the entirety of the dwarf fold, when Durin is like, hey... my dad's gone nuts. All of them. The entire hold is like, yeah, we hate the king. Fuck. When did this happen? When did you organize this mass uprising? And then he doesn't even do the uprising. Like, he doesn't arrest his father or anything, which apparently causes his father to break out, kill a bunch of dwarves, and then go looking for the beast, the Balrog, which is common knowledge now, I guess.
I don't know. It's all a mess.
Show tested. Oh, that was another thing too. Okay, so the mithril that Sauron gave to Celebrimbor, where the hell did you get that from? Apparently he made it from his own blood. Like, okay, cool enough. So he tricked him in like, hell, this is an illusion, use this. And it's his blood. Okay. If that's the case, though, why are the other rings whispering to people? Why are the dwarven rings corrupting the dwarves? Why aren't the elven rings corrupting the elves? Why did you only put your blood in the rings of men? It's like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. It is the classic example of the left is going, I can have my cake and eat it too, of course. And they eat their cake and they're like, oh, my cake is gone. Yes, that's how it's supposed to work. Because if you corrupt all the rings, then extra corrupting these rings make no fucking sense. And if he could just use his... Oh, never mind. You know what? Never mind.
It's like, I have a prediction. It's going to be a really stupid prediction, but I will laugh if I'm right. So, after all this shit goes down, I think they're going to try to melt down the Elven Rings and recreate them when Sauron has fucked off. And then they're going to be like, yes, here's the Elven Rings. They are improved, the same names and everything. But now it's not under Sauron's influence.
Who even knows? Because, again, they've completely fucked up the entire story of the rings here. If the rings are inherently corruptive, then why the fuck aren't the elven rings corruptive? And if they aren't inherently corruptive, why are the dwarven rings corruptive? But if they're, God, but then why use his blood? What? Is it just as a substitute for the mithril? Okay, but doesn't that mean that mithril has something of the same properties as Sauron's blood? Why is Sauron's blood mithril? It's one of those things that sounds cool, but the moment you think about it, it's retarded. Like, oh, he's substituting for his own blood. Oh, that's diabolical. Wait, his blood is metal?
I don't think his blood is the replacement for the mithril. I think, like, for the dwarven rings, because he was holding that piece of mithril, like, really hard before he dropped it in. I think he squeezed it hard enough to, like, cut himself, get some blood on it, then just drop that shit in there. Because otherwise, I don't see it being, like, any other way like that.
Maybe, but I mean, they didn't show that.
Well, of course they're not going to show it, because they want to be sneaky.
I don't know, I think that's giving the show too much goddamn credit, honestly.
You know what? You're right. Fuck me. Never mind.
The only part I did enjoy about this episode is when they threw a blonde elf, whose name I have now long since forgotten, off the ramparts. For no particular reason. Oh, and also that's the... Okay, so... Anatar makes it look like Celebrimbor yeets blonde chick off the ramparts. And the guards see this and they're like, dude, you're crazy or something. And they arrest him, because that was the final straw. But then Galadriel shows up afterwards and goes like, well, he's your boss, you can't just arrest him. Why didn't they then go like, Galadriel, my lady, we saw him yeet a chick off a fucking rooftop. Like, he's not well.
I don't know. I think Blonde Chick died sad because she couldn't fucking bone her favorite blonde side piece.
I never thought that I would actually dislike just a battle scene, and yet here we are. All the dumbass action in the world cannot make up for it if you can't actually write it. And at the end, there's like 24 elves standing outside the walls. That's all that's left. The might of the elves at their peak is reduced to 24 dudes. And I guess, okay, you know what? This is a great setup. Because the Black Elf dies in this episode. And we were all wondering, what happened to all the Black Elves? Because there were no Black Elves in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. What happened to all the diverse elves? Well, they all died in battle, I guess. And then the rest of the White Elves purged the last few remnants for shits and giggles. Well, at least we've solved that mystery. I'm looking at it right now. I think there's only White Elves left at the end of the battle. All the diverse ones died. Oh, well, that explains it. Holy shit.
Survival of the fittest.
Like, at least the Rings of Power explained one of their plot holes. That's something. That's something. Oh well, another 6-7 days of peace until the next episode and the end of Season 2 of the Rings of Power. I'm looking forward to see how they're going to MacGuffin their way out of this one, because the elves aren't just beaten, the elves are dead. All of them. And the dwarves are apparently finding a Balrog, so, I don't know, does Sauron just appear now and snap his fingers and all of the orcs go like, Master, we're so sorry for stabbing you dozens of times. I don't know why we did that. Who even knows? Oh well, I guess we'll have to wait and see.